Hey guys, I'm going to create Tetris in JSFiddle. I'm going to start by creating a new game object, and I'm going to add all the properties that Tetris needs. State, this is state of the game. Is it paused? There's a main menu? Is it game over? And so forth. Score, by default it's 0. We haven't earned anything in the beginning of the game. The width of the Tetris block is going to be 12 and height is going to be 20. These are the dimensions of the Tetris grid where all the bricks are falling. Next is going to be an index into the next piece that's going to be falling. And current is the same as next. It's an index. It's just a number. Position X, this is where the brick is going to be initially appear on top. So Y 0 and X 4, about 4 blocks to the right. And I'm going to use a faster variable. When you press space, the block starts to fall down faster. So I got all of these. Now the current color index is going to be 0, and this is for using it with colors. Actually, I'm going to say color I, or current color. Probably current color is more intuitive. Colors, and I'm going to define all the colors that I want to use. The first one is going to be empty, so I'm going to call it cell. It's an empty cell because we need that too. Not all cells are colored or solid. And here I'm going to use cell, let's say white. And I'm going to go like this, cell, and keep defining all of these items here. Red, blue, cell, orange, cell yellow, cell purple, cell green. And I'm going to create a second set of exactly the same items. It's going to appear strange and repetitive, but I have to do it this way because I need 2 sets of the same colors, and they will be separated by about 7 different indexes. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if we add 7 again to this array index, we're going to get the same exact color, but it's going to be considered solid. So we need 2 sets in one array. It's going to make things a lot easier. So let's try this out. Okay, we got the colors defined, and I'm going to define the grid, and this is going to be done. The grid is going to be a new array, and the size of this array will be this width multiplied by this height. So that's the number of cells we need. We have 10, 12 in width so far, and 20. We can change this later, but 240 cells. Let's go to now that we created this array, we need to populate it with some zeros so that it's an empty array. Grid length, and I'm going to populate it with just zeros. And the reason for this is because the very first we're populating with indices from this array. So the first one is 0, is going to be cell, and this is going to be an empty cell. There's nothing there, so this is why this one's 0. So we created the grid, and now we're going to create some shapes. And this is probably my favorite part of this code. And I'm going to create an array. I'm going off the screen here, so I need to scroll that up a little. And this is just going to be created like this. Let's say an empty one. Each piece is 3 by 3 blocks on a Tetris grid. And it's going to be something like this. Well, it's really easy. They have this L shape, so we're going to fill in this space like this. It's an L shape. Let's say something like this. And the next one, it's the same L shape but in reverse. So this one 0, this one like this. And we need to define a few of these. L, then that was L version 2. This is the the box, I would say. Then the next one would be a stick. Now I'm not going to create a really long stick. I'm just going to create 3. Probably put it in the middle like that. There's only 3 blocks in this stick, not 4 like in the original Tetris. This is just, it's easier to program, and just to make this tutorial shorter, because it's really going to be long. It's an entire game. So and this is the the Z shape. I don't know what else to call it. This is the Z in reverse, so it's the same one. It just goes like this. And what else Tetris has? Tetris has this T shape, and another one T in reverse, although it doesn't really matter. Probably doesn't, because it's the same one. It's just, you can't really mirror this one, as I understand. Anyway, this might be the last one then. Okay, so we close it. We created all of these shapes. Now they'll be stored like this. The next thing that we need to define, so we got this array of all the shapes, but we need to define the one that we're working on currently, the one that's falling down. Current shape, and that's going to be exactly the same as we defined, except by default, of course, it's empty. So just fill it in with zeros like this. Okay, and it looks like we're ready to start adding functions to our game object. The first function we'll add will be we define default utility. Let's create some utility functions. Collision, and I don't know whether to name them with uppercase. Let's use lowercase. I don't really know why. And this collision is going to be a function, and we're going to use it to test whether there's a collision between blocks. I'm going to show you how that's done in a few moments. And this is going to be, next function is we need a copy. We need to copy the block. When the next block appears, we need to populate this current shape. We need to grab one of these and copy them into this. So this is our working shape, and that's what this function will do. Actually, that should be really easy. I'm gonna add the code for it right now. It's gonna take shape index, so it's gonna take one of these 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, and it's just gonna walk through that array. And because we know we have 9 boxes in each one, we are going to use current shape index, and we're going to grab the shapes from the shapes array we just created, and it's going to take the shape index passed to the function and the same index. So this function will copy one of these into the this is the one we're going to be working with throughout the code, rather than just individually accessing some of these. So copy from shapes into current shape. The next function we're going to need is paste. Paste, so it's going to take the current shape and paste it into the grid. And this is a common operation throughout the entire game of Tetris. We're pasting the current shape into the grid. I'm not gonna write the code yet. I'm just gonna make sure that we have this function placeholder. And the next, obviously we need to find a way to rotate the pieces. So we need to and we can rotate left and right. So rotate left, and this is the same, rotate right. Created this one, and I think we have these utility functions defined. We need to move on to some gaming functions that are less obscure, like for example, initialize the game. This initialize. This will reset everything. Now we're going to need draw each frame. On each frame in the game, we're going to draw something. So we need to update the game, and I'm going to name this function drawFrame. Next, we'll need function next. This whenever this one's called, the next brick will appear. So once it's dropped, once it has collided with something, we're going to drop it down. Let's see, we have all of these defined. This is the basic structure. We need some pause the game. Actually, I made a mistake. I added these parentheses to all of them, but we don't really need them. Okay, that was a mistake. Pause this, pause, unpause, pause and unpause. Originally the game is paused probably when it's on the main menu. This pause, this unpause. So this will actually create state. State equals, what was that? State. The second one will be 0 is main menu, 1 is playing, so 2 is going to be paused. Unpause, I would say go into main, no, not main menu, go back to play, so 1. Just 1 play, 2 unpause, 2 pause, 1 play. So, and let's just, for clarity's sake, so we don't get confused later on, let's define these states. Game playing 1, game menu, this is the original first state, 0, game paused 2, and game over 3. So we're gonna game playing, gonna assign these, if it's paused state, it should be paused. If it's playing, if it's unpaused, we're going to game playing, and if game is playing, we're gonna check for game over later. So what I've done here, I created a game object. I created some properties, score, state. I created representations of colors as just string variables for now. I created the grid. It's an array width times height, so we got 240 cells. I created shapes. I created a current shape into which we will paste one of these random shapes. I created collision and some other placeholders for future functions. And we're going to start by writing code into initialize function. So let's create this is a constructor object that we just created. So we need to create an instance of this game. So in order to do that, I'm going to say g equals new game. So we have just created an instance of the game with all these functions and everything else. And the first thing that we need to do, we need to initialize it. In order to do this, I'm going to use jQuery. I'm going to add it into Fiddle. And this allows me to use document ready. So this is called when all HTML objects are finished loading. And this is a good place to start the game. So I want to keep this object global, so it's outside of this function. We can access it from anywhere. Although we probably may not need to do that because everything is defined inside the object, not outside of it. So I don't know at this point whether we really need it to be global or not, but I'll keep it global for now. So by this time we should have the object ready, and let's go and initialize the game. So this code will run whatever we have here, and at this point I need to start creating HTML. So div, I'm going to create a div and call it screen. This is the screen, the game screen, and I'm going to go here into CSS and define some properties. I'm going to say that I'm just going to add a border to it and make it solid gray. And I think that's all that this one needs. So when we initialize the game, because we can always change width and height later on of the cup, whatever you want to call it, the grid. Right now it's 12 by 20, but if somebody chooses to change it later, we need to adjust the screen accordingly. So because initialize is always called before we initialize a new game, this is a good place to do that. So I'm going to use jQuery to add some width and height to this grid. But before I do that, I need to define the width of a cell. And as you remember, cell from here, I named it cell on purpose. This is an HTML elements class, and all of these are, I'm going to define them separately. But the first one is cell. So what I'm going to do, when I need to decide the width and height of each cell, I'm going to say 24 by 24. The cell, black cell, this is an empty cell, so it's going to have a black background, black, and that's about it. Width and height, it's also going to be a, I need to make it float left. I'm going to do it later on, you'll see why. Screen, basically because this is a linear array, it's not a x by y, it's just one line indexed as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so forth. There's no way to access this by x and y without writing a small formula. You'll see how that's done later on. So screen, I define screen. I know that let's also actually cell width 24, just in case somebody wants to change that for their own resolution. With height, so I'm going to use cell width, or maybe I'm going to use a different variable because they're all always square. So I'm going to say that this is a block size. Block size is a more proper name. 24 pixels by 24. So going back to initialize, we need to calculate the width, and I'm going to use CSS method of jQuery. I'm going to give this HTML width of this width times block size and plus px, and I'm going to give it a height, just the same height times block size as well. So it's going to automatically resize to these parameters that I have in block size and dynamically specified width and height. By default, they're 12 and 20. So it's going to be 12 times 24 and 20 times 24. And this is the initialize function. We're already calling it from ready event. So if I run this code right now, let's see what happens. Run. As you can see, the square appeared. This is our game area. And from this point on, we're going to continue initializing. First, we need to display the grid. We need to draw the grid on the grid. And in order to do that, we need to populate the screen HTML block with this with the entire grid of blocks, and by default they're empty, but we need to start somewhere. And so in order to do that, I need to do something like I need to take the grid and first of all initialize it to a new array again. I know I've done that in the constructor, but this is just to be safe. If those properties have changed, if these parameters have changed for one reason or another, it's just safer to create a new array. I'm gonna walk through this array. And I'm going to, again, this grid I0, which is the first cell, the empty cell. So I cleared out the grid, and the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create an empty string. And again, I'm going to walk through the length of this entire grid again. But this time, instead of clearing out the grid, I'm going to continue collecting div elements. And I'm going to do it this way. Let's create a, so we keep adding a new div to this empty string. And we're adding cells. And originally, the class of this cell is going to be cell. That's what I defined in CSS right here. It's 24 by 24. And let's see, grid length. So I have an array of all of these. I need to be able to identify each one individually. So I'm going to get it an ID, and it's going to be cell plus the index. So that's how I'm going to know that it's a one specific cell at that place. So I'll create this. I'm going to take a screen variable, and I'm going to place the HTML that I just created in this, stored in this string, into the screen and see what happens. I'm going to run this. As you can see, all these rows got added. But because in HTML by default each div is blocking, it's going to take the entire row. So in order to prevent that from happening, I need to redefine the cell style and make it float. So if I make it float left, they will all, let's run this. As you can see, they filled up the entire space now. Now we need to place the game into a state, and when the game is initialized, it's not yet playing. We need to press something to start playing this. So I'm going to state, originally when you initialize the game is in menu. So in its initialized state, it's reset into game menu. And so we initialized the basics, and now I'm going to go into drawFrame function, and I'm going to check for game state. If game state is game menu, draw the menu. Now I'm not going to use the switch statement here. Game, let's say game menu, then playing. That's when it started. We need to define another function that starts the game, resets the screen. So this state, game playing, if this state, game paused, we can do all these different things during the game. This state equals game what? Game over. Menu playing paused, game over. And so we define all these different states. We start with game menu, so we need to do something. And for now, I'm just going to do something really simple. And I'm going to create all these different screens in HTML. Menu, then paused, playing. Playing is always just the screen, so we only need these two, I think. And game over 3, game over. So I'm gonna add some styles here for each one. Width is going to be 220 by 24. I need a calculator for that. 2024. It's 480. 480 height. It's going to be 20 by 20. That's actually width is going to be 288, and height is going to be 480. And I'm going to just arrange all text align center. I need color white, background black, and I'm going to create all these different states. Go to menu. I'm gonna drop this to make it more clear. So menu HTML. Paused did the same thing. Game over is the same thing. And so we have all these states, HTML boxes for each state. And by default, so at this point I need to make sure that all of these screens are not shown at the same time. And I go into initialize function in order to do that, and I'm simply gonna use jQuery. A screen, we need screen menu show, make sure that it's shown. I'm gonna use paused, and I'm gonna hide it. I'm gonna hide game over. We don't need them here at this point. And I'm going to go into drawFrame, and I defined here all of these states. So we need to just to make sure if it's game menu will be shown. If it's game playing, then menu will be hidden. Everything will be hidden. Hide them all. You can specify each HTML element into jQuery object by using a comma. So paused, game over, hide them all. And menu, what else are we missing? Screen, we need the screen. Game paused, we need to hide everything except game paused, show. And then game over, we need to hide everything paused except game over. So by just switching the state in the game, by assigning game menu, game playing, or game paused, these actions will be automatically done for us, so we don't need to worry about them. There are many different ways of doing this. You don't really have to do it this way if you're making your own game. This is just, it's a fast way for this example to make sure that nothing weird is going to happen, that we're not going to display multiple screens when we don't really need them as we're playing the game. I'm going to format this a little. And so then we're we are ready to start the game. And it starts game menu. The menu is shown, and let's make sure here also that others are hidden, because we don't know from which state we're coming from. It could be anything. So all of these are hidden except menu. So hide, pause, and game over. So this is where it starts. And menu, let's add something in here. It's going to be really basic. I'm going to use input type button value. This is the game menu, so we need play. We need the play button, and let's refresh that. Okay, many things happened here. Screen menu. We forgot to add absolute position absolute, so each screen goes on top of the other one rather than show up as one below the other. Absolute, top 0, left 0. So this is going to show it in the upper left corner. We need to do this for each screen. Run. Very similar to what we're looking for. That's because body has default margin. Let's take out that margin from the body. And okay, it's perfectly aligned now. This is play button. I'm just going to add some text just for fun. Tetris, run. And I'm going to add some line breaks here. There's some really basic HTML just to get started. Play. So once we press play, we need to switch to the different state, and that state will be playing. So we're fully initialized by now. Remember that after we created the object, we initialized it. Now we need to attach an event to this play button, and this is done here as well. Play button event. So I'm going to select it. It's this button that I just created. I need to add an ID to it and just call it play. So, and then refer to it like this with jQuery. jQuery has a function called on, and it's done. It exists to help us add events. to all kinds of things, clicks. This could have been something else. So, but here we're saying that game state should change to game playing, and as we know, the menu screen will disappear if that happens. Let's see if that's true. Play. Something went wrong. On click G state game playing. So the state did not change for some reason, and that reason is we initialize the game, but we're not calling on the drawFrame function. That's where all the drawFrame, we need to call it on every frame of as the game happens. So it's like the function that processes the visuals of the game. And in order to make it start working, we're going to use setInterval function, and it takes a nameless function. We're going to call it every 1 microsecond or 1,000 of a second, as fast as possible. This is our main game drawing loop, and within this function we're going to call drawFrame. So this function is going to get called really fast, and now that we have it running, it will take care of all the states. So play, I press play, and it disappeared because it went from this state, which is game menu, into the next state, game playing. So, and this is where all the interesting things are going to happen. I'm going to add a new function here. We have initialize function, but that initializes the entire game. Here I want to add init game to the main game object, and the reason for that is that this function will reset the game, not all the objects properties, just the game itself, and it's going to score 0 this initialize. What else do we need to initialize? It's going to select the next piece by getting a random number next. But instead of creating this by hand, let's this is a good time to create the next function. This chooses the next block. So we're gonna go into let's see, the first one is always 0. Let's go up a little into initialize function, or this entire array, and next I right here. Initially we need some kind of a next number, math floor. This is how you create a random number in JavaScript. I'm not going to go into detail, but you have to call random. You have to use floor on it, or otherwise it will return a floating point. We don't need that. We need just a normal number. Math random. And we need to specify the number of pieces that we have, the total number, so it will choose from that. We're going to use 6 because we have 7 of them, but we need to use +1, so it never selects 0. The reason for that is that 0 is always empty. The next Tetris piece cannot be empty, so it's always at least +1. So if it gets 0, it's going to be 1, and 1 is this cell white. Then it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, I may be very mistaken here, because next I is going to select next index, not the next color. Next I goes into one of these, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 shapes. It's possible to do maybe like this. This shape's length So this is much better, and we should probably move this out. I'm not sure if this makes any difference, but we should move this out into here, and so that we have shapes already defined and we can use it. I'm not sure if it matters or not in JavaScript, but I'm just going to put it in there. So we got the next shape selected. It will automatically get one of these. Next I, that's one of the first things we will do. So when we call the next function, we will already have some kind of a value there, and we'll need to do this process again, run this code again. No, this is next. So we got our next, and we need to take current shape equals whatever we just calculated in next. Then what we're going to do, we're going to use the copy function, this one, that copies one of these into this array by index. And what we're doing here is really we're taking the random index and we're going to use it in place it into this function. Current has become next, so I'm going to run copy. It's going to copy this piece from the shapes into the current shape, and we're going to recalculate next for next time. Next I equals math for, and so on, the same exact thing that we've done there. The position of the piece, once the next piece falls or collides with something else, we need to get the next one. That's what this function does. And its x position may have changed, but we're going to bring it back to divide the screen width by 2 and probably minus one block. This will center it on the screen. And next, current color. Current color needs to be randomized as well, and that's where these values come in. Let's see, we're going to this current color, what was the variable name? I need to find out. Current color I, that was the index parameter. So we're going to randomize this as well. Floor, random, and this colors length, I'm going to divide the colors array length by 2. This way, because we have solid and non-solid, if I divide it by 2, it will get the proper value. That is non-solid, because the first 7 are non-solid. If I didn't do this, it would have started choosing solid and non-solid, and we can't mix them together. So next one, just as a precaution, if something goes wrong, color I equals 0, which is empty space, and we can't allow that. We can't make the next piece be an empty space, so we always at least make it 1. And I could have added +1 here on this line at the end, but it's probably not going to work as planned because of how randomize function works. So I need to make sure that we are not going over the limit. If it's more than 7, that's where the solid ones start. We can't go there, so we're limited to the first 7, which are not solid. And this is what these ifs are doing. Next, I'm going to we created the next function. We were here, game, init game. I'm going to rename this to start game. It was already initialized, so we're starting a new game. The score is 0. We're going to choose the next piece. It's the function that we just wrote. We're going to clear out the grid. I'm going to copy and paste because it's really the same thing. I'm going to when the new game starts, that's the first step. We're going to copy. We're going to clear out the grid. We're going to score 0. We're going to go to the next piece. So it's always random. That's what happens when we click play. At this point, the code starts to get really more complex and less intuitive. Not as intuitive as it seemed in the beginning. That's exactly the reason that I decided to break it apart into pieces and have a lot of empty functions for now, so you can see the entire structure. Had I not done that, I would be just moving back and forth between different functions, and without knowing this entire structure, it would be difficult to understand. So I had to build this tutorial in this way. I had to structure and organize it this way. And so the next we just called it, so we're going next, and when play button is pressed, we need to call that initialize game function to reset the game and to get the next piece. And that's what I've just done. So again, at this point, the code starts to get more complex in terms of not its technical difficulty, but in how it's organized. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to clear this out. I'm going to make this smaller so it doesn't take as much space. And I'm going to do the same with the shapes. So we already know that that's what they look like. So I'm going to clear them out like this. It's not going to look as intuitive anymore as it used to, but we get the point. These are the pieces of Tetris just represented in 3x3 arrays. There's a linear array of 9 items. 0 is empty space, 1 is solid. So this is a little better. This one's obviously 9 empty spaces, which is the current shape. Collision. So we started the game, we press the play button, and now we are in game playing state. The drawFrame function gets fired every 1,000 of a second, and we're here. We initialize the game. We started. We got the next. So here we need to paste the actual piece into the box, and that's what I'm going to do. In order to do this, I need to create a new function. I already created it. I need to create the content of that function. Paste. So this paste, we're going to take this current one. We already defined it. We got the next one. It's random. We're going to take this current shape and paste it into the box. So we got our first piece. It's not going to be falling yet, but this is something that we need to do. This is an important, probably one of the most important functions in this entire game. And one way of writing it is we can create a copy of the game's position X and position Y and store them in regular X and Y variables. We're going to get game width. Actually, you know what, we don't have to use these. We don't have to create copies of them. We can just go straight. We need to find a way to index into the grid, and in order to do that, I'm going to create grid index, and because the grid is linear, it's not like width by height. We can't access x3, y5 vertically and horizontally. We have to find that position ourselves. So in order to do that, we need to index into the grid, and one way of doing that is to get we have position X and position Y. That's the current position of the piece that's falling. We need to take this GW, this is going to be width of the entire grid, so it's going to be 12, and we're going to multiply that by position Y, because that's how many rows the Tetris piece has fallen down already, and we're going to add this position X, because that's how many to the right, that's how many blocks to the right from this position that Tetris piece has. Basically, that's where it has been positioned on the grid, and that's how you calculate the index into a linear array. That's the best way I can explain it right now, because we need to move on and actually get this to work. So the next step is to, now that we got the index, we need to paste. We're going to paste width of the piece plus, and we're going to have something there, and we're going to do the same with height. So it's 3 by 3. Each piece is 3 by 3, so that's why I'm using these numbers. And 3 by 3, and so now we're inside this piece. We also need piece, not the best variable name, but this is the index into the actual block, and it's going to be, I'm going to call it just index, and this is basically and if I don't really have to use it actually, because I can calculate it inside the loop. So this is where explaining this, how to make this game, is getting a little more complicated, and it would take a long time just to explain what's actually going on here. And I planned this tutorial to be really about an hour and a half maybe, so I need to fall into that time, so this doesn't get too long, because it can take an entire day really. So I'm going to stop explaining exactly what's going on, because it gets more complex, but I'm going to continue typing this in. So I might explain this at a later point, so I'm just gonna start adding the code in and to the paste function and some others. So this is where my explanations really stop, because if I continue them, then it's going to take like 5 hours to do this video, and I wanted it to be much shorter than that. So let's change some things about this function. So I think I finished writing the paste function, and it basically goes through the current shape. It indexes into the grid and pastes, and it will paste the actual values from here, from the current shape into the grid. So I'm gonna test that right now. We need to paste on each frame, so it's, and the fill color is going to be this current. I believe it's going to be current color, or for now let's just use 2. It's going to be the same color, but we're just testing. So run, play, nothing happened, so we need to paste is not pasting, fill value, there's grid index, and the reason for that is that we pasted the actual values into the grid, but now we need to update it with those values visually in HTML. This is done by assigning a class that's those values that I created in the very beginning. We need to assign this to each cell. So we have pasted the values. Now we need to show them visually, and we already have the entire grid displayed. It's just they're all blank, black cells. We need to update their CSS, and in order to do that, I'm going to refer to each cell by its index. That's why I added index in the very beginning when I was adding those divs. And I'm going to use attribute method in jQuery, and the color that I'm going to use, this colors, let me go back to see how they're defined. This color, and the index should be this grid value. That's the value. Let's try to run this code. Still nothing happens. Class, of course this should be a cell. Run. Nothing at all happens. It filled it all with zeros. Let's try to experiment. 2. Let's see. Class. Okay, that's right. Color. Let's see. Current color index should be this grid I. That's what we just pasted. So, and now we need to access the class name, so that was right. Maybe nothing was pasted, but we can do something like this just to test. 12 grid run. For some reason it's not applying to the correct, let's see, grid. It's that grid 0. Say if I make it 3, let me just delete all this. Let me get rid of paste. I wonder if it actually has an ID. Cell ID. It certainly does. Class equals cell. Class. Oh, for some, that's right. I haven't defined the actual HTML classes. Of course, it's getting something. And in order to do that, I'll try to do this really quick. White, and this next one, red. So I'm going to create, I forgot to add these classes in. So I'm applying the style, but the actual classes are not there, so it's not doing anything. I don't think it's the code. The code should work. So it was all of these yellow. And that's about it. Maybe green. Let's see if it works now. I'm gonna run. I'm gonna play. Still nothing. Something should have happened at least. Grid 0. Run. It's not updating the grid. Well, that's because I commented this out. Run. Okay, so now it works. It's properly identifying location on the grid. So run again, play. It just doesn't. It doesn't paste. Let's see, paste. So there's something in the paste function, and it's probably current shape, current I. When we initialize the game, start game, this next, it went into next, so current I became this copy. I'm going to display that here on the console, just to see what we have here. Current I. Let's run, play. There's an error somewhere. Undefined is not a function. Okay. So after I renamed initialize game to start game, I forgot to do it here. So it's never getting any next pieces. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to run, play. Still nothing, but at least we can. Current I is not defined. That was the problem. And that's, we can get it. Current I, next, current color, current I, this next, start game, next, start game calls next. So current I console, I'm gonna log that out. This next equals this next, and current I, this current I equals this current I. And let's see what happens if I run the game. Current I is not defined. Okay, it's not defined, but let's restart. Console message not shown. That's a lot of messages. Code reference. Current I is not defined. Maybe it's really not defined in here. It's definitely defined in the object. Initialize. Let's see, current I. So where is it that we're using it? Of course it's not defined. And this paste. Let's go into the paste function to see what's going on there. And fill value, current shape. The fill value then paste. So we just pasted this current I, current. The fill value, let's try 3. I've already done that. And now there's some other error. This is probably not going to be possible to do this tutorial in an hour and a half as I had planned. But I want to continue working on it. I want to finish the game. It's just there's grid I. This is correct. Class CIX. It's this color attribute. This color. This color correct. Current color I. Current color I. That should be in the grid. So what is going on here? We pasted. Let's try this again. Let's add something else is not working. I've broken something. Where's this current I? Let's clear that out. Run. Unexpected token. This this color. Where is it? Where is this unexpected? I'll try console. Next function. Okay, this current I. Okay. Plus this next I. This current I. Is this really causing the problem? I need to refresh this. I'm going to save this fiddle for now, and I think it's a good time to do that. Unexpected token. I don't know. I can't figure this out right now. I'm just not going to. It's probably something really simple, but it's already taking. Okay, I think I figured it out. It's something like that. Console. Let's run that. This start game. Undefined is not a function. Start game. Okay, that's true. I instead of game object I use this. Play. This works. So I'm going to try and paste now. Run it again. Play. Nothing is being pasted. it should have produced some result. 7. That's right, it does paste this one, but let's go into paste and see what's going on there. Something's wrong with the fill value 3, grid index, this width, this position X, it's 0, so it's 0 and goes to, okay, that's one, that one's correct. H minus 3, H plus plus, grid index plus this width, that's when we're going down the row, minus 3, this looks correct. Grid index, okay, CI 3 times H, just 1, 2, and so forth, with states, current shape. Okay, what is this? This current shape. This current shape. We are pasting into it. Okay, well, it's 0, so there's really nothing. So the paste function is not really pasting anything. And for some reason I expected it to do that. And the reason for that is because there's nothing in the current copy. We forgot to do this. Forgot to call copy. And we need to do that. Start game. Next. I should probably do that after, right after next. So every time next is called, current, but it's here. So it's current I. Again, we came back to full circle to this copy. This current I is this current next. So let's try this out again. Play. What do we have here? Uncaught. Next. Next I equals 3. Okay, so we have all these values. Current. This current I equals 0. So even now, we're gonna go into copy. This current shape index, this is correct. Shape index, current shape, 0 to 9, current shape defined correctly. Let's find out, what do we have? Okay, let's console out this current shape and see what happens. There's an error. Cannot read length of undefined. But I'm not seeing this current method. Okay, colors. Okay. The next function had a bug. Instead of colors, I need to use color. And it's a variable name. And still there's something else. Let's see, let's run that. I'm using debugger. Okay, so the shape is there. Run again. So it keeps choosing shapes. That works. Now we need to paste. I'm gonna go back. So the shape is there. Cell attribute. It's a grid length. paste. This paste. Let's see if the paste function is actually pasting anything. If state 1 current shape, then paste. Let's try something out. Let's remove that by. Okay, no, it's not. That doesn't look good. Need to, once we figure out this paste function, it's gonna go much easier. But there's something wrong with it. State this current shape ci plus this width. There's grid index. Okay, let's see what happens if we just run. This is not supposed to be happening. This grid index. Okay, I forgot. Grid index needs to keep going, and that was another bug. Let's see, grid. Okay, at least we now have this space. Current shape ci plus this width. That looks correct. Ci current shape. If I just use ci plus I'm not sure why are we adding width here. What if I remove this? Oh, this might be S again. Maybe it's just a variable name. No, it's not. Okay, so it pastes, but it doesn't know what's in current shape. Maybe I should do something like this. You know, what is in the current shape? Maybe there's nothing. Let's try again. Is that doing the right thing? 0. Is it showing me a box? Plus current shape. Next let's say 4. Let's see, is that gonna change? It does change. So next math floor shapes length +1 maybe. Now why would that? Next random math floor. That's an error right there. It needs to choose random. Okay, it does that. So we're getting closer. CII. Yeah, just not sure. There was a bug. I added a width. That was. And let's see if that's gonna count in a state. I'm gonna rename this state to solid so it doesn't conflict. And this is the paste function. It works. We can now we can probably okay, paste and next color. The next color was current color. So this color, CIX, this grid, we'll paste specific color. This is the fill value. Current color I, that's in this object. I can safely remove these ones. Now let's run. Now it creates all of these elements. And we go back to paste function, replace this with fill value. Run, it should start to randomize colors. And we're ready to start dropping the blocks. And in order to do that, I'm going to add a second counter. So this is a draw the game, but there should be another counter for dropping this piece, this block. And all this is going to do is every second it's going to this increase position Y, so it starts falling. And actually we need to add something, first of all, not this, it's the game object, and only if game object state game playing. So when the game is playing, we're dropping the piece, and we're gonna see that. So as you can see, the piece starts falling, but we're not erasing anything, and that's the next step. So we just paste everything into the grid, but as it keeps falling, that old value remains there. In order to do that, it's done by clearing out all of those. But how do we know? How do we know which ones to erase? Well, because we know that every time we need to update the game grid, we need to erase all of what had just been pasted, only if it's not solid. So that's the next step. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to erase all non-solid values, and in order to do that, I have to walk through the grid again and trying to figure out which function that should take place in. And I need to do that in drawFrame. So when the game is playing, before anything takes place, I'm going to walk through let's see, the entire grid again. This grid, and what I'm going to do, if the value there is not solid, and that means equal or greater than 1, and it also means this grid less or equal 7. This is the range in which we have non-solid values. Then erase them, put them back to 0. Clear out the grid on each frame. Only then we paste the piece, paste current piece, draw updated grid, we pasted that, and then we're redrawing the grid again. And doing that here should erase everything behind. It didn't do that. Okay, so as you can see, it's doing that right now, and it changes, randomizes the pieces just as expected. And the next step I'm going to add collision. So we already have a placeholder for collision right here. This is going to be a pretty long function compared to others, but it's going to be worth it because it's going to define the gameplay for Tetris. I'm going to create some left. I'm going to left allowed true. This right allowed true. So initially we can press left and right, and it's allowed that we can move the piece left and right. And I needed to create those extra variables. I'm going to store position x and y in separate variables because we're going to refer to them a couple of times. And as I'm writing this, I realized that what we're doing really is we're taking the paste, exactly the same thing that we did with paste. It's the same code, and we're using it to check for collisions. And in order to do that, I'm gonna paste everything that I created for in the paste function. I'm going to change it a little. This function will be called every frame to check if there's a collision, and I'm going to do that by I need some extra parameters here, and grid index. Okay, I'm going to check state. Actually, I'm going to rename this to state inside this function only, and if state equals, and I'm going to add a second solid. Initially it's false, so we don't know which one's solid. So basically, again, I'm walking through the current brick, wherever it is, position X, position Y, it's going to be falling down, and I'm checking that position against the grid. And in order to check if it reached the bottom, and I'm going to see if the state equals 1. I'm not going to paste anything this time. I'm just going to check hit the bottom, and when this happens, state if state is 1, which means it's solid. Okay, we're going through the falling piece. We're not going through the grid right now. And grid index greater this width times this height. So this is the entire length of the cell grid. And we need to do this minus width. So this is going to get us the last row. and just going to do it like this. And so this has hit the bottom, and what we need to do once it does that, we need to return from this function, and we need to make this block solid, and we're going to do that by increasing its index, its color by 7. By doing that, we will let's see, we're gonna use the paste function, and we're going to paste into the grid current fill value current we're going to paste it into the cell at that same location. Current, I forgot what the color was. Was it current color I? Current color I. I'm going to make it +7 because that's going to make it solid. And as you remember, we're not erasing solid ones, so this will make it stick. And that's exactly the purpose of having two sets of colors here. They repeat, cell white starts here again. The second half is exactly the same. It repeats. So when we add 7, it's going to go to the solid version of that color index, and it's going to paste it as a solid block, whereas previously we were just pasting it into the grid as a transparent block that's not really attached to the cell itself. So let's do that. Return, and they should start. After this, after it's attached to the bottom, we need to reset the Y position of the brick back to 0, and position X should be this width divided by 2 +1, I think. We'll see if this will work, if this will center the next block. So we need to call collision every time we're in the game. If it's playing, we need to grid check for collision. I think it should go before anything is drawn. So this collision, now we're checking for collisions as it's falling down, and let's see if this actually works. Play, and let's see what happens when it reaches the bottom. It's probably going to be a long wait, so I'm going to add space maybe early on just to test. Yeah, so it's easier to test in the future. I'm going to it's not exactly in the center, so we're going to minus, I would say -2. It would center it then approximately at the center. Well, as you can see, it's colliding with the bottom, and it's making them red, but we'll probably have a different number of colors. Let me run that. It should remain red. It should red, blue. It goes to the previous colors, so it's probably 6. It needs to remain the same color. We'll see if this remains green when it reaches the bottom. So we got hit the bottom done. It actually works, and now we need to check if this collides with the actual block that's already there. That's another test. Maybe 8, then I don't know, it keeps changing colors. I don't know what that is. A white, so it keeps changing colors, and it shouldn't be doing that. It should remain, this one should be white. Okay, so the next one's white too. We need some change in color. And okay, we need to implement that here, or it will never change the colors. And all I have to do is go next, run. Let's see what happens now. Orange. Now they should change colors. It keeps going. It's gonna reach the bottom. It's gonna get stuck. So this is more or less working properly as far as colliding with the bottom. And the next thing we need to implement, we need to collide with actual solid blocks, and that's done in a very similar way. Collide with solid blocks, and I'm going to take that here, and this should actually be much easier to identify. I need to fix that. I'm not sure what's going on with that white stick, and we have some black blocks also. If collide with solid blocks state, it's the same thing as the previous test, and solid and solid, and the same thing. We need to this is a little backwards. We need to paste. We need to do exactly the same thing and go to the next one, reset this piece. But what is solid? We need to do a test for is this solid? So if this brick encounters something solid, we need to let the game know, let the collision detection know about that in grid at this index plus width, because it's one more row down. So if it's there, if it's greater than I would say we need to count by hand. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If it's greater than 8, if it's greater than 8 and solid, then it's greater than 8, then it should be solid. And that's how this test is done, and solid is true. Let's try that out. Probably need to make this go faster, and let's make it every half a second. It's a little faster. Probably not fast enough for testing, so let's do 200. Okay, fell down. This one fell on top of it. That's correct. And just keeps going. I'm not sure what that is. Okay, there's a bug somewhere, and I need to figure out what's causing that. Maybe that's not going to be easy. It seems to happen when next function is called console log. We don't need that anymore. This copy, I'm going to continue next time on this. So far, I think I've done some good progress, and I'm going to stop it here for today, and I'm going to continue it tomorrow. But I think this is a good progress so far, and I'll just see you guys next time. I will definitely finish this tutorial and make the game playable, and after all this is figured out.